Good morning. I'm going to finish reading Dust and Desperation to you from great Gilly Hopkins. So we ended where Gilly was trying to get into Trotter and Randolph's house. Remember, she wanted to get his money so that she could go see her mother, Courtney. So that is where we ended. She asked for a stepladder. That's right, to go to Mr. Randolph's house. So we're going to pick up right here. The stepladder was old and rickety, but it would beat trying to climb those bookshelves of Mr. Randolph's, which looked as though they might come right off on top of you if you pulled at them. She set the ladder up under Trotter's chandelier, and as she painstakingly wiped each piece of glass with her ammonia water rag, she would have to grab the ladder from time to time, dizzy as she was with the smell of the ammonia and the thought that by tomorrow night at this time, she'd be on her way to California. Late that night, she packed the brown bag and shoved it far under the bed. Tomorrow, from the school payphone, she'd call the bus station and find out how much the ticket cost, because remember, she wants to go see her mom, Courtney. Then all she had to do was get the rest of the money. Gilly was coming out of the phone booth the next day when Agnes appeared demanding her money. She pretended to be grumpy about the $5 Gilly gave her, but there was a greedy gleam in her eyes. She was pleased, all right. Can we get more, she asked. Gilly shook her head. That's all there was. I split it 3 ways. Looked like a lot in your pocket yesterday. Yeah, but the rest was all in ones. I don't see why you split equal with that weird kid. He wouldn't even know the difference. He's not as dumb as he looks. Gilly looked Agnes straight in the eyes. He acts stupid, maybe, but if he thought you and me were cheating on him, Agnes shrugged. Well, she said, next time, let's not use him. So it's kind of obvious that Gilly is feeling some type of way towards W.E. I mean, she even stood up to Agnes, protecting him. Okay, sure, next time, Gilly agreed, knowing happily there would be no next time with creepy Agnes Stoke. Tonight, she would be bound for her new life, her real life. She got rid of Agnes at the front gate with some lie about Trotter forcing her to scrub all the dirty pots in the house. Agnes said she'd go on home. She wasn't too crazy about cleaning pots and pans. The stepladder was in the hall. Gilly put her school books down on the table and went right to it. As she was leaning to pick it up, Gilly, honey, want some snack? She straightened up quickly. It would be better to eat while she had the chance. She gave the ladder a pat and went into the kitchen. Trotter was sitting at the table. She seemed to have finished her daily Bible reading, for the good book, still open, was pushed to one side. Right before her was a piece of notebook paper, half filled with her square script. She had a 19-cent ballpoint pen clutched tightly in her right hand. When Gilly came in, the huge woman smiled shyly at her over top of her reading glasses. Writing one of my old children. I do miss them when they grow up and leave me, but the good Lord knows I ain't much at writing. She looked down at her letter and sighed. There's more of them cookies in the tin box next to the refrigerator. Gilly poured herself a 12-ounce glass of milk and took 4 of the cookies. Sit down, Gilly, honey. I ain't really busy. Gilly sat down at the far side of the table. Things going better for you now, ain't they, honey? Okay. I've been meaning to say, you know how much I appreciate the way you've been making friends with William Ernest. Yeah, okay. Like Ms. Ellis says, you're a special kind of person, Gilly. It makes me praise the Lord to see you so busy helping instead of hurting. Shut up, Trotter. You got so much to give, mercy, what most of us wouldn't give for half your brains. Shut up, Trotter, shut up. So this is what Gilly's thinking inside her head. The silent commands were obeyed because just then, W.E., honey, appeared and Trotter roused her great hulk from the table to get him his snack. Trotter, baby, if you had half my brains, you'd know to let the boy do things for himself. If I were going to stay here, I'd teach him how. You want so hard, and you don't even know. Even the birds know how to shove the babies out of the nest. If I were going to be here, I'd make a man of your little marshmallow, but I can't stay. I might go soft and stupid too, like I did at the Dixons. I let her fool me with all the rocking and love talk. I called her mama and crawled up on her lap when I had to cry. My God, she said I was her own little baby. But when they moved to Florida, I was put out like the rest of the trash they left behind. I can't go soft, not as long as I'm nobody's real kid, not while I'm just something to play musical chairs with. An elbow pierced her rib cage. Gilly jerked awake. What the hell? W.E. was trying to attract her attention without getting trotters, mouthing some words through a full load of cookie crumbs. Huh? She asked the question by raising her eyebrows. He swallowed. Then, surprise, he mouthed, pointing his head in Trotter's general direction. She shook her head with vigor. Not yet, she mouthed back. Later. A little grin escaped and danced around his face. Gilly sighed. If she didn't watch herself, she'd start liking that little jerk. She excused herself. I'm going to get on my dusting over at Mr. Randolph's. W.E. made as if to follow. Nah, William Ernest, you better watch Sesame Street today. I'm going to help you with your reading later on, and you have to be real sharp, right, Trotter? You better believe it. She knocked several times at Mr. Randolph's door before he opened it, his tie and shirt and his face still clogged with sleep. I brought your stepladder back, Mr. Randolph. Oh, thank you. Just put it there on the porch. But I thought, since I was here and I had the ladder and all, I might come on in and, start to work. Oh, Miss Gilly, you don't have to worry. I was just talking the other night. What I can't see isn't likely to hurt me. I don't mind. I want to help. Every week or so, my son over in Virginia comes and he brings this lady to vacuum a little. That's all I really need. But I want to. God, what I mean is, I want to help Mrs. Trotter. And you know how she is. She really doesn't need my help. But I figured if I do something for you, it'll be like doing something for her. Bless you, sweet little lady. How can I say no to that? It worked. He stepped aside for her to come in and shuffled along right into the living room. Was he going to stay in there, his sightless eyes following the sound of her? Why don't you just go up and finish your nap, Mr. Randolph? I feel bad waking you up like this. He chuckled and stretched out the worn blue plush armchair, his feet up on the equally worn stool. He closed his eyes. Wouldn't you rest better on your bed or something? I'm going to be working in here, making lots of noise. Mercy, Miss Gilly, I can rest in heaven. In the meantime, it's human company I treasure. It won't bother you if I just sit here, will it? I promise not to make suggestions. Why don't I come back later? I don't want to bother you. Bother me? I'm delighted. Remember, Gilly doesn't want him there because, remember, she's trying to take the money. She kept her eyes on the little man as she carefully set up the stepladder at the far end of the bookcase wall. The blue plush chair was exactly where she'd shoved it 2 days earlier, kitty-cornered 3 feet from the place she'd have to set up the ladder to reach Sparserilla to Sorcery. Remember, that's the book the money was in. Excuse me, Mr. Randolph. Her voice barely squeaked out. She cleared her throat. Mr. Randolph. Now she was yelling. I'm going to have to move your chair. He got up like an obedient child. Gilly shoved, pushed, and tugged the heavy chair to a place opposite the red encyclopedia. She arranged the chair and then the stool, and then took Mr. Randolph's elbow and led him to them. Now your chair's just opposite from where it was before. I hope you haven't strained yourself, Miss Gilly. Right between the end of the couch and the corner of the desk. Couple feet on either side, okay? Fine, fine. He sat down and stretched out again. Gilly went back to the stepladder, climbed the first step, and then back down. I guess I'll begin with the windows over the desk. He smiled, his funny little blank-eyed smile. You're the doctor, Miss Gilly. She did the windows and the desk, and then moved the ladder around Mr. Randolph to the smaller of the 2 giant bookcases. She went back and dusted the picture over the couch, which was of a fancily dressed white people in another century having an elaborate picnic in the woods. She kept looking over her shoulder at Mr. Randolph, who lay motionless with his eyes closed. Since he'd been known to sleep on Trotter's couch with his eyes wide open, there was no way under heaven to tell if he was wide awake or dead asleep. But he wasn't snoring. That was worrisome. But hell, the man was blind and half deaf. Why would it matter in the least if he was sitting right there in the room while she robbed him of money? He was too old to remember. Still, the closer she got to Sparserilla, the more her heart carried on like the entire percussion section of a marching band doing the Stars and Stripes Forever. At last, she moved the stepladder directly in front of the place and took a step up. Glancing sideways at Mr. Randolph, he didn't move. She eased up the ladder, trying not to make any noise, but it creaked and swayed under her weight. From the next to the top step, she could reach Sparserilla to sorcery without stretching. She braced her left leg hard against the cold metal of the ladder, took out the now familiar volume, and laid it gently on the ladder top. Nothing was visible except dust. She took out books on either side, dusting each one with a kind of fury. Still nothing. Mr. Randolph was shifting in his chair across the room. She looked into his blank white eyes. Oh, God, maybe he could see. Maybe it was all a trick to fool people. So she froze. You certainly are doing a beautiful job. So careful, my. I don't know when this room has ever been so thoroughly clean before. I'm sort of straightening up the bookshelves. Fine. He was bobbing his head. Now, if there were just some way you could straighten up this old brain of mine as well. She was not going to panic. He couldn't see. Of course he couldn't see. It was really better that he was in the room. Nobody would suspect her of stealing right from under his nose. She dusted the space and then moved Sparserilla down to the shelf that held the rest of the encyclopedia set. On the shelf from which it had come, she proceeded to remove one by one all the other books, wiping carefully behind each one to the dark stained wood at the back of the case. With every book, her hope rose and fell, rising a little less and falling a little more each time. At last, she knew that her lie to Agnes had proved all too true. There was no more money. Fear and anticipation curdled in her stomach. She wanted to throw up. Mr. Randolph was chatting away happily. She couldn't seem to tune in the words, just the maddeningly cheerful tone of his high-pitched voice. She wanted to throw a book at the noise, kick over the stepladder, crash a chair through the window. At the very least, scream out her frustration. But of course she didn't. Wrapped in a silent, frozen rage, she folded the stepladder and carried it to the basement. You going now, Miss Gilly? The voice followed her down and up the steps and out of the house. Thank you. Come back for another visit, won't you? Be sure to tell Trotter what a lovely help you've been. She made no attempt to answer him. It didn't matter what he thought. He was no use to her. 39 stinking dollars. She went straight to her room, took the brown suitcase out from under the bed, and unpacked it. Then she ripped out a sheet of paper through the rings of her notebook, laid down on the bed, and pressing on her math book, she wrote, Dear Courtney Rutherford Hopkins, I received your card. I am sorry to bother you with my problems, but as my real mother, I feel you have the right to know about your daughter's situation. At the present time, it's desperate, or I would not bother you. The foster mother is a religious fanatic. Besides that, she can hardly read and write, and she has a very dirty house and weird friends. She started to write colored friends, but erased it. Not sure how Courtney might react. There is another kid here who's probably mentally retarded, and I'm expected to do most of the work, including caring for him, the mentally retarded boy, which is very hard with all of my schoolwork, too. I saved up $39 towards my ticket to California. Please send me the rest at your earliest convenience. She wrote love, but then she changed it to yours sincerely, your daughter, Gladriel Hopkins. P.S. I'm very smart and I can take care of myself, so I will not be a burden to you in any way. P.S. again, I have checked the cost of a bus ticket to San Francisco, and it's exactly $136.60 one way. I will get a job and pay you back as soon as possible. She listened at the top of the stairs until she heard Trotter going into the downstairs bathroom. Then she crept in the kitchen, stole an envelope and a stamp from the kitchen drawer, and ran to the corner to mail her letter before the rage could defrost and change her mind. So that is the end of that chapter. If you look on here, I left it open so that we could comment to each other back and forth. So if you have any questions for me, you should be able to write in the comments. I'm going to start it. So I just put, if you have any questions, let me know. So I'll stay on for like a minute or two longer just to see if anyone has any questions. I think the interesting part is that we're seeing Gilly change a little bit. She is kind of protecting WE now. She didn't want Agnes to talk bad about him. I think she still has a lot of faith in her mom, right? She wrote Courtney and she is hoping that, that she will send her that money. I'll let you guys make a prediction and decide, what do you think? Do you think Courtney's going to come through for her? Do you think she'll ignore her? I'll leave for you to decide. I'm not seeing anybody type anything yet. Let's see. So I'm going to go ahead and end this. If you have any questions for me, you can go ahead and message me on Canvas. But tomorrow at 10 o'clock, I will be back on again to read the next chapter called The One-Way Ticket. I'm going to go ahead and save this to my YouTube page. So if you talk to any of your friends who did not get a chance to tune in and they want to listen to it, just tell them that they can still find this on my page. All right. Bye, guys.